evening, everybody, and how are we all doing on this fine Sunday evening? The last Sunday in September, I'm afraid to say. Tick tock, time is flying by. Hope you're all well. Hope you've had a fantastic week. Even better, I hope you've had a great weekend. It is 6 o'clock. It is time for our weekly live show. This is a chance for us to get around, have a bit of a chat about gardening, have a debate about something or another. We want to find out your happy thoughts or something that's made you happy in the garden later on. I'm going to have a bit of a rant about something. But before all that, what I really want to talk about is polyculture. Polyculture, the art of taking several different plants and planting them next to each other. And in particular, this is to apply to the vegetable garden. Now, I'm going to ask the question, what is your definition? Actually, no, the first question I'm going to ask is, do you practice polyculture? While you answer that question, let's see if anybody is out there. Turbo Stream says, good evening, veg podcasters. I won't be watching tonight as I'm in Pembrokeshire and probably be on the beach watching the sunset. See you all next week. Have a lovely time, Turbo Stream. Kate is there saying, good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. Chili Kate is there saying, hi, everyone. A lovely afternoon to be on the allotment. Hello to you. How did you get on the allotment? Tell us more. Allotted Chef, aka Nathan, is there saying good evening, everyone. Good evening to you. Digwell saying evening, campers. Heidi hi, Heidi ho, wasn't it? Although Chili Kate says wrong show, Digwell. Good evening to you. Anyway, Scott is there saying evening all. Good evening to you. Stuart Jackson saying evening, Richard and the Veg Army. Hope we are all well. Good evening to you. Anna Jones saying evening, gardeners. Good evening to you. Digwell, Heidi hi. And Digwell's put his hands up saying he practice his polyculture. Digwell says, my version of polyculture is more like chaos planting. Interesting. Tell me more about chaos planting, as you call it. Rebecca is there. Evening, Richard. Good evening to you. We're talking about polyculture. So let's get into what is polyculture, because I think this is one of those things that can sometimes get a little bit lost in translation. Quickly, before I get into that though, over on Instagram, Crab89 has joined and Andy's Garden 24 has joined. Welcome along. Lovely to see you. We're talking about polyculture. So what is polyculture? Now, I've always found polyculture to be a bit of a weird term. How do you define polyculture? And I think simply put, the polyculture is the plant of planting different species of plants in the same bed or next to each other. A type of companion planting, but I feel companion planting doesn't really do it justice. Now, most of my gardening I've done over the years has always been very, I want to say organized. There is an organization behind it. I would tend to plant a row of carrots, a row of garlic, a row of whatever. And my main reason for doing that was actually to make it easier for harvesting and for looking after the plants. And I think that's quite an important element, because it does still need to be easier. I don't want to be digging up a carrot, for example, and disturbing the roots of another plant at the same time. But there's something to be said for polyculture. So do you understand that? What is your definition of polyculture? Does that make sense? And would you feel I've described polyculture in a correct way? Over on Instagram, Crab89 says, planted fennel from seeds today and today I planted garlic in between. Now, garlic is actually a good example, because I'm planting my garlic at the moment, and I'm still planting all my garlic in rows. I'm just here at home, particularly, I'm just spreading the rows out on different beds instead of all having them all in one bed. But I'm still doing it in rows. I'm still going to keep the garlic in rows. I'm not going to have a garlic plant planted here and then a tomato plant planted here next to it. The reason for that is it's just going to be hard to look after those plants in my eyes. It's going to be hard to treat those garlic and those tomato plants in the correct way. So that's why I'm still I'm going more to polyculture, but I'm still sort of having a bit of a mix up with it. Jenny says, for me, polyculture is growing all different types of plants together where they support each other and create their own ecosystem. Trees, shrubs, perennials, annuals, veg, fruits, and flowers. Now, again, I kind of agree with that. I mean, nature itself, you will not find polyculture going on, monoculture in nature. Monoculture being what we would traditionally do in a garden or farms where you have fields of one particular type of plant. That does not happen in nature. Generally speaking, nature does follow the polyculture route. So there's a lot to be said for it, but I'm still struggling a little bit with what the difference is, or how to set this up in a way that is efficient, helps me look after the plants and tend to the plants and harvest the plants, but still works as a polyculture routine. Over on Instagram, Just Your Cup of Tea has joined. Lovely to see you. I hope you are well. Anna Jones says, the only time I fill a whole bed with one thing is when I grow potatoes. Apart from that, I always fill the beds with different things in strips or chunks. See, this is how I feel my home plant is going to be, or my home plant is going to be learning itself more too. Having a whole bed just filled with different plants. I feel the allotment is still going to have very different, or beds of potatoes, beds of beans and peas, beds of everything else, because it's part of my system, part of my routine. The allotment is still going to be a bit more industrial, but that might change in the future. But yeah, the whole sort of the bed mixed with different plants, chunks or strips of different plants, is more what I'm going for. Crab89 says, my theory was the fennel be ready in 6 weeks and the garlic comes later. It's a good idea, good idea. And Just Your Cup of Chai says hello. Jenny says, less to no weeds or pest damage, less watering and less need for supports. Talking about what the benefits of polyculture. Digler says, chaos gardening is a no-fuss method for using up leftover seeds. My version is for leftover seedlings, see a space, pop it in. So is that quite simply what you do? You just see a space and you pop it in. You don't have any plan when you plant out your plants. And I say that because I'm going to use the garlic as a good example, because that's something we're planting at the moment. The garlic, I still do mine in rows. I've said planting mine in rows. It's a bit difficult to get anything to grow around the garlic at this time of year, and things like that. I've completely lost my train of thought, so we'll come back to that when it hits me. Jenny likes that. Stuart says, my garden is more of a mixed flower and veg together. I started potting plants in the best places for them rather than vegetables in a veg patch and flowers in a border. So that's a good idea. I mean, one of the reasons that I think we tend to do this more sort of monoculture is for crop rotation. So we don't have, say, brassicas grown in the same bed for year after year after year. The whole crop rotation so that pests and diseases have a harder time was always the idea. But I don't know if there's any scientific basis behind that for it to be worthwhile. What do you think? Does crop rotation matter in a polyculture garden, or in any garden for that matter? Scott says, I don't know much polyculture, but I like the idea of it and something I want to do, so I will be quietly taking notes. Again, this is something that I want to do as well. I feel that my garden would look better with more of a polyculture look to it, more of a mixed look to it. Digwell says, I tend to keep onions and garlics in organised beds to make it easier to weed. They have shallow roots and are easily outcompeted for nutrients by unwanted weeds. And this is exactly my point. It is difficult to get that just right with some crops. So perhaps we're using bad examples. Perhaps we need to think more what works well in polyculture. Okay, let's go with that. What crops, if you do polyculture, what crops do you like to mix together? That might be a good question to ask there. Jenny says, polyculture works well for succession sowings. As you pop in a plant in where there is space. Also, I don't use nets or mesh on brassicas as the other plants help hide, help and support. So again, this is sort of my thinking. So The way I've always done my garden, my allotment, I've had the beans in one bed, I've had the roots in another bed, I've had something else in another bed, and I've moved them around based on when I'm harvesting them. So, like the allotment, there's a crop rotation going on, but it's like my potatoes come out, so I want my winter crops to go in. It's usually the brassicas, and the same like my brassicas, my summer brassicas come. No, sorry. Yeah, my summer brassicas, they come out, and that's followed by my overwintering garlic, my overwintering onions. So that's my crop rotation. It's not so much about space for crops and diseases. It's more so that I'm using the soil all year round. A crop comes out, I can plant it up with something else. There's nothing more annoying than getting to, say, the middle of summer when you want to plant out your winter brassicas, your leeks, your cabbages and cauliflowers, and not having anywhere for them to grow. And this is where my crop rotation plans have came into place. But perhaps the idea, and this is something that I've been toying with as well, so I might plant out potatoes, and then I'll put in something to follow that on in the space that those potatoes have freed up. That's where I'm sort of thinking of going with polyculture. Digler says, no crop rotation for me, but I do know what went where in case of disease. There we go. Andrew Norris says, evening, Richard and everyone. Just back from Dalmatia after the grape harvest. How did it go? How did the grapes go? We've had a good year for grapes this year. Digler says, I grow it all anywhere except beans, spuds, tomatoes, alliums, and corn. I mean, that's quite a large amount of the crops, isn't it? Beans, spuds, tomatoes, alliums, and corn. So it's a lot of what we do grow. Over on Instagram, Crab89 says, I think it comes down to space. Just like bulb planting today, I put daffodils in a border, and pot seed-grown wallflowers on top. There we go. Scott says, with polyculture, do you have any problems with shading? Well, actually, that is one of the things that has bothered me. So the tall crops, let's take beans. That's probably a good example. Beans, would they cause any problem with shading with any crops behind them? I guess you could use that to your advantage and plant anything that prefers to be in the shade, lettuce, spinach, to the northern side of the beans, and that might just help keep them growing longer. That might be a way around it. But this, again, is something that I've often worried about. Most of our gardens are not in full sun, as much as we would like our gardens or allotments to be in full sun all year round. Many of us do have shadier areas. The sun comes from one direction. We've got to think about that when it comes to our sun-loving crops. Jenny says, I grow everything everywhere, a little here and a little there. So very sporadic. Is it a case you just have a plant, you throw it in where you feel it to go? Or do you literally just throw darts on the ground, for example, and that's where it's going to go? Andrew says, the harvest went well and the grapes had a high sugar content. We are all rather satisfied. Excellent, excellent. So it has been a good year for most fruits, including grapes this year. So that is very, very good news indeed. So coming back to polyculture, have you noticed any crops that seem to do better side by side? Now, this comes back to one of the questions we often ask about with companion planting. So, for example, something I've done a lot this year and most years is nasturtiums, growing in particular with my cabbages. That seems to kept off the cabbage white butterflies, but also with my beans, it seems to have kept off and staved off some of the black fly as well. Nasturtiums for me are a must. I grow them pretty much everywhere I can fit them in. So it's worked really well for that. But is there any others that you can think of that work well together? Jenny says, beans create fantastic shade for salads, radishes in the summer, brassicas in the summer, all enjoy the shade. Okay, so this is actually starting to make a bit more sense now, because as I said, that was one of the things that was bothering me, beans causing the shade. Now I think about it, we can use it to our advantage. We could use it to help us grow better food. We could use it to create the shade that we need for our shade-loving crops. Yeah, I get it. Digwell says, well, spuds would overshadow everything. Yep, that's why it's great for reducing couch grass. Tomatoes have specific feed requirements. Corn, ditto. Shade, beans. Yeah, yeah. Beans are on frames, no good for much else except squashes, but then they block out the beans. Yeah, yeah. So I guess what you're saying there, from what Digwell and Jenny are saying, as experienced polyculturists, is that what we can call you, polyculturist? I like that term. I'm going to use it, polyculturist. As experienced polyculturists, uh, knowing what the plants need helps work out where you're going to plant. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. But doesn't again? I come back to I'm a big believer in planning. I like to do a lot of planning, my allotment, my garden, etc., etc. So, does that mean that by doing polyculture, in the sense that I was thinking, um, would lead us to not being able to plan properly? But I guess not. I guess not. Crab89 says, I was thinking of planting potatoes underneath tagetes. Would that work? Tagetes? I would say alongside. I think you mean to get, as in the marigolds. I would have thought that would work alongside. Marigolds are another good one to grow, aren't they? But they're more companion planting, and I'm more about edible planting, edible plants. Nicola's joined. Evening all. Sorry I'm late. I've been feeding the ponies, birds, and potting them to bed as it's dark by 7:30 now. Yeah, it's getting, the sun is already starting to get low in the sky. Jenny says, I had multiple small trees or shrubs in every bed to give me shade, shelter, and support. And funnily enough, this is something that I saw in a garden I visited earlier this year. Well, they did use trees in the middle of the beds, big beds as well, but they used trees in the middle of the beds and they planted all the way around it. I like the idea, I like the look of it, but my first thought was those trees are going to suck all that moisture out the soil, but at the same time going to create all that shade. So, thinking laterally, I mean, I've always done something where I've grown a tree, I would underplant it with strawberries or something to create like a mulch layer, a shading out all those weeds underneath by using strawberry. I mean, strawberries are great anyway. Good example. Crab 89 has reminded me that marigolds are edible. Indeed, they are. Yes, good point. Adrian has joined, says, hi, Richard and all. Good evening to you. Allotted Chef Nathan says, would the Three Sisters planting system be considered polyculture? It would be, in my mind. I think it would be, because you've got 3 different types of crops growing in one bed. So, for those that don't know, you would grow corn, i.e. sweet corn, with beans, which grow up and around the corn, using the corn as sort of, what do you call it, like pea sticks, frames, and then you would have squash, pumpkin, courgettes, rather, on the ground level to shade out the soil, keeping the moisture in the soil, but also reducing the amount of weeds. So definitely a form of polyculture, one that's got quite a bit of thought behind it. There is a thing when it comes to Three Sisters, you do have to get the timing just right. That's just something to bear in mind. Anna Jones says, I always use other crops shade my rows of self-blanching celery rather than grow them in a block. Interesting. How do you do that? What do you grow with your self-blanching celery to do that? What do you use? Jenny says, my pea frame had peas growing up, potatoes under the beans, and radishes in the middle, enjoying the shade, so not as hot. Sunflowers growing all the way through, nettles growing at one end. It's really interesting how you've done that, actually. I do find that quite it's hard to visualize in some ways, because it's quite a mix. And I think this is where I've always had trouble is the mix. The mix with, like, growing radishes underneath your potatoes, that feels very wrong to me, because potatoes are going to shade it out, but next to them makes a bit more sense. Jenny says peas, not beans. Digger says taget is marigolds. Yeah, That's what I said, and that's what I said. Um, but potatoes underneath marigolds, would that work? And tagetes. Digwell says marigolds are very edible. Digwell says Three Sisters only tends to work well in the south of the country. Yeah, it's all about the timing when it comes to the Three Sisters. One of the biggest problems is that some people would pot all three seeds in at the same time. But what you have to do, you have to get the sweet corn going first, so that when you plant those, they are quite tall. Followed by the beans, so that they can start to climb up the beans, and then followed by the squash, because you want this corn and you want the beans already basically established and growing before the squash goes in. Otherwise, the squash is just going to shade out the corn and the beans. It's all about timing. You really need to start the sweet corn early, the beans a little bit earlier, and the courgettes around about the right time for it to be effective. But they do need a long growing season. Anna Jones says chard, parsley, French beans, or fennel to shade the celery. Interesting indeed. Jenny says basically try to copy Mother Nature. The plants have relationships under the soil. Tap roots bring up nutrition, fibrosis roots, etc., all connected under the soil where the magic happens. And I'm a big proponent at the moment for trying to look after the soil, encourage the soil life to produce us better food. Idaho says hello, Richard and all. Hello to you, lovely to see you. Jenny says I say chop and drop. What the plant takes, it gives back. Indeed. I've lost where I was there. Stuart says I had morning glory growing up my sweet corn this year. I think I do more potager gardening. Potager is a mix of flowers and vegetables, which is very popular way of growing. And I guess you would class that as polyculture as well. From there. So my next question too, I'm going to open this up to everybody, not just those who practice polyculture, the polyculturists, but to everybody. Who prefers to plant in nice, neat rows or for more mixed up planting? Now, for me, I've always tried to do neat rows, but I have to admit, I am not a neat person. I do have a bit of messiness about me. I try and do things neat. I start with the best of intentions, and then things, for some reason, well, my ADD kicks in. I can't be bothered. I rush, and that's where things go wrong. So I try to have rows, but I wouldn't say they are neat rows. But there's something, again, I've been talking a lot on the podcast about, is as certain crops become or come out, I'm filling those spaces up with whatever else I have available. Chard has, and this at the moment, or certainly over the last month or so, has been a crop that I've had a lot of, that is just filling up spaces where voids have become available. Chard, for me, I quite like chard. The chickens love it as well, and it's a good one just for planting in over winter as well. Feeds to the chickens too. Great to use in the kitchen. Probably debatable on that one. Stuart says, oh, I read that one. What else have we got? Jenny says, I don't do rows, let alone neat rows. Excellent. Stuart says, no neat rows anymore for me. I fill the space I have with what is best for the gap. Okay, I'm liking this. Digwell says, the tree thing you mentioned is called a tree guild, a polyculture design that blends fruit trees, vegetable and ornamental plants to abundance and beauty in the vegetable garden. The Tree Guild. There you go. A new term I've not heard before. Anna Jones says, neat rows for me. I'm a neat freak. Fair enough. That's fair enough. Everybody's different. And this is something I always get across. Everybody is different. And this is where what we love about this show is that we celebrate the differences. Over on Instagram, Just Your Cup of Cheese says, I like to plant in staggered rows, but put a different type of plant in each hole. It works well. Okay, I can buy that. I can buy that a lot, actually. I quite like the idea of that. So you might have a chard, you might have a beetroot, you might have, probably bad example there, might have a chard, a tomato, a carrot, um, something along those, all in one row. I like that idea. That's actually lending itself to what I want to do more. Although I still feel when it comes to carrots, a row of carrots is easier to do than anything else. But as we harvest carrots, perhaps we can fill that up with whatever we have available. Crab89 also says on Instagram, we built the raised beds and was like, yeah, we'll grow just lettuce here, but how much lettuce do you need? That is a good question. Does depend on how much you eat. That also will come up in the mission a little bit later on. For me, I have a bed 1 meter by 1 meter. I've split into 4. Every 3 weeks, I will sow cut and come again lettuce into that into each corner on a 3-week rotation. And in cut and come again, I eat a lot of, and I find that gives us enough. So it really depends on how much lettuce you eat, how many salads you eat, but I eat a lot. I do eat a lot. Abigail Franklin has joined, and just a cup of tea says exactly, Richard, agreeing with my definition of what she was talking about with the staggered rows. I like the idea of that. I do like the idea of these staggered rows, I have to say. So more of it, please. Absolutely more of it. Now, we're going to... I'm a bit conflicted because I could go to the mission, which isn't a video. It's going to be me talking, or we could carry on with this at the moment. I'll tell you what, let's quickly go to the mission for a quick second. I haven't got an intro video for it, so it just imagine the mission music is same. But last week's mission that you set me was to come up with a list of how many plants we would need to grow to feed a family. And this is actually, I can't actually see that, but I have actually, hopefully on your screens, you'll be able to see it a little bit better. I've come up with this table that I've listed. I've gone quite extensive on it, but I've listed a load of plants. So for tomatoes, for 2 people, you would need 6 to 8. For 4 people, 12 to 16, or 6 people, 18 to 24. Potatoes, 20 to 25 for 2 people, 40 to 50 for 4 people, or 60 to 75 for 6 people. Carrots, 50 to 60 for 2 people, 100 to 120 for 4 people, and for 6 people, 150 to 180. Garlic, 12 to 15 for 2 people, 25 to 30 for 4 people, 40 to 45 for 6 people. You get the idea. The lettuce, because that was asked, 12 to 15 for 2 people, 25 to 30 for 4 people, or 35 to 45. I will put this on a blog post on the website rather than trying to read it all out for you. The only thing I would say, and I think Doug Wells spotted a glaring error in that, which I can't see at the moment. But the only thing I would say is that that's a very difficult list to really come up with. I really struggled with it because, let's say I take something something like onions. I had on that list about 50 onions, but that really depends how much you cook from scratch. If, like me, I make a lot of chutneys, I make a lot of good food from scratch, so I need more onions than that list says. Same with lettuce, we eat a lot of lettuce. Same with tomatoes, we try and grow a lot of tomatoes, not just for eating with salads, but also for making chopped tomatoes, keep in the freezer through the winter months and things like that. So it's a very generic list because I would actually go a lot more than what is listed if I had the space. For me, I think the safest thing to do is just work out how much you need of each and grow and grow. Let's get rid of that. So we'll put that on the blog post probably Tuesday on the website if you want to check that out. Is that mission accomplished or mission failed, however? Digwell says, just do a row of carrots amongst the beans, brassicas, chives, leeks, lettuce, onions, peas, peppers, pole beans, radish, rosemary, sage, mint, tomatoes, still classed as polyculture. Yeah, absolutely. Stuart says, like, share, subscribe, etc. Just a little reminder. Everybody, please do give us a like. Please do give us a follow, subscribe, and click that notification. Digwell says, kale 0 to 0 to 0. LOL. Indeed, he doesn't like kale, so he wouldn't grow any. Jenny says, can you pop that guide on the Facebook page, etc., and website? It would be a great for people to reference. I can certainly do that as well. So we'll be on the website on Tuesday. I could put it on the. Yeah. Just keep your eye out on social for that. I think it's a good reference. I think it is a good reference. I'll make it downloadable from the website as well if anybody does want to have a look and copy it off and things like that. But moving on, let's carry on with this discussion on polyculture. I think one thing I would say just before we move on, that, as I said, it does depend how much you grow of each vegetable as to how much you really need. I do eat a lot of tomatoes, a lot of spinach, so I probably would grow more than the most people. Now, my next question I have on this question about polyculture is, what is your best companion plant for success? What is if you have done companion planting, and this is falling into the boundaries of I'm going to sneeze, that's why I'm polyculture. Excuse me. I think there's going to be another one. There is going to be another one. Maybe not. Maybe not. Yeah. So, what is your most successful companion plant? What has given you the most success? For me, it's been the nasturtiums. They have, for me, been the biggest good thing that I've grown that have really done well. Digwell says, and if you only have a small area, grow the things that cost more to buy or do actually taste better than shop bought. And again, this is one of those things I've often debated. It really does depend. Everybody is different and different manners. Growing the most expensive makes financial sense, but it may not be the thing that you eat the most. So I would be inclined to eat more or grow more of what you eat first and foremost. But that's the same with anything in vegetable gardening. Grow what you eat. Jenny thinks I have a good point. Crab89 says, if you were growing onions, would you intersow with herbs? Is that polyculture? That would be polyculture. What herb would go well, or what companion plant would go well with onions? I'm going to throw that down there. Digwell says, dill is hands down his best companion plant. There is no other plant that can grow with so many other vegetables, etc. Dill, does that grow well with onions? Digwell says, wipe the snot off his face. I did look away. Stuart says, this year I put some basil next to my tomatoes. It worked well in the greenhouse. Now, basil and tomatoes is actually one of those companion plants that the two, are known to go very well together. The basil actually makes the tomatoes taste better and vice versa. I think there's a reason that tomato and basil work so well in the kitchen, because they actually grow really well together as well. So yeah, tomatoes and basil. I try and pot basil in with my tomatoes every time as well. Jenny says, the best companion plant for me is nettles. Edible leaves, black fly magnet, brings in butterflies, edible seed, clean, can cut and come again for, makes a good fertilizer and mulch. A lot to be said for nettles. Now, Crab 89 was asking about onions. Digwell says, onion companions, chamomile, beets, brassicas, carrots, dill, and kohlrabi, leeks, lettuce, strawberries, and tomato mint. quite a few there, quite a few to go on a long list. Digger also says basil and tomato tasting better is a garden mist. Really, I notice a difference. So I'm sure I do. Or perhaps it's the placebo effect, but I definitely notice a difference when I grow my basil and my tomatoes together. I definitely notice a difference. Perhaps it is the placebo effect then, but I definitely notice it. I definitely notice it. So I'm going to say it's not a myth. I'm going to say, in my opinion, it works. It works. Over on Instagram, Dahlia679 has joined. Welcome along. We're talking about polyculture. I think this is going to be now an opportunity. If anybody has any questions to ask on polyculture, to throw it out there, and we'll get some of the experts to share their experiences. I've found this discussion for me to be quite enlightening because I've been trying to figure out what I could do to make my garden more polyculture, more polyculture friendly. Sorry, and one of the difficulties I was trying to figure out was how to tackle the shading issues. But actually, it's quite simple when you think about it. You plant a plant that does well in shade. I mean, that is just so simple. But crop rotation, not necessarily a problem. I don't know. Is it a problem? Is it a problem if we don't rotate our crops? I very, very, very rarely get any problems with pests or disease. The only problems I really get would be slug and snails, which getting worse. They're getting worse. But the other problems I tend to get are with regards to leek rust or peach leaf curl, which I don't get peach leaf curl anymore because I put my peach tree in the greenhouse over winter. But certainly leek rust and blight. Actually, it answers the question when you think about it because they're all fungal diseases. So yeah. There we go. Jenny says I've never done all crop rotation, so I've never done it. There we go. Never had a problem. There we go. I looked into it as I thought I was losing into this, as I thought I was losing out. LOL. I was talking about the basil and the tomatoes. I definitely noticed a difference, but yeah. But it goes on. There's no biological mechanism by which basil can infuse tomatoes with more sugar or flavour through the roots or leaves, and studies have shown no preference for tomatoes grown with or without basil. So you're just saying that I'm weird in that I could sense a difference. Maybe it's just because they're in the greenhouse. I don't know. And Digra says it's chemically impossible for basil to chemically alter the flavour of or sweetness of tomatoes. So why did I notice a difference? I wonder what's wrong with me to notice a difference. Over on Instagram, Janjor Coolies has joined. Welcome along. Lovely to see you. We're talking about polyculture. Scott says, I think the eating and tasting of food is made better by other senses than picking and together of them both. Yeah, it could be. It could be the sense. The smell of basil has improved the flavour in my senses, if that makes sense. Because they do say that smell has a big trigger to your the flavors, doesn't it? So yeah. It is called the Mandela effect. You have been told it, so you believe it. I never believe anything I'm told, though. I have to test things to see if I actually find it to be true. That's because I'm a very untrusting person. If you believe that, you believe anything. But I do wonder if perhaps it is because I picked my tomato from a greenhouse, also with that smell of basil. Perhaps that's what's making them taste better because it's opened up the senses, the nasal part, the nasal paths to make the tomatoes taste better. That would make a lot of sense. The basis of all cooking, indeed. Okay, so Well, let's quickly go. This feels like a good point to go to this week's cook along. And this week you set me the challenge or the cook along of making a Branston pickle. Let's see how it turned out.
Hey! Come and cook with me. Make some food with me. Come on, everybody. We're gonna make some food. Let's go.
Okay, so for this week's cook along, you wanted me to cook up a Branston pickle or a similar thing to Branston pickle. So first of all, let me show you all the ingredients that I'm going to need to make this happen. So as you can see, we've got quite a few ingredients that we're going to need. Basically, all the vegetables are going to be chopped up, put in a pan and cooked. So it's actually quite a simple thing. We've got some gherkins, we've got some sultanas, we've got some dates, got some demerara sugar, red wine vinegar, a couple of apples, carrot, celery, a couple of large onions, 1.5 kilos of tomatoes. We've got a swede, we're only going to need half of that though, and we've got a cauliflower which we're also only going to need half hour of. So all we're going to do is spend the next probably half hour chopping all these up and pop them in the pan. Okay, so here's all the chopped ingredients, the sugar, the tomatoes, the final thing we add, 500 ml of vinegar, a touch of allspice, a bit of salt and pepper, and then we're just going to cook that for about an hour and a half. This is going to take quite a while. We've got to stir it occasionally. You will note I left the skins on the tomatoes. I always do that. The skins will come off when cooking. You will skim them off as that happens. But I always leave the skins on because I believe that leaves in a lot of the flavour. Okay, so this has been cooking for about an hour and a half. I don't think we're quite there just yet. Every now and then I've just been giving it a stir, but as we get closer we have to stir it a little bit more often. As you can see, there's quite a bit of liquid still in there. It's the wrong colour for Branston pickle as well, but there's still quite a bit of liquid, although it is becoming quite solid. How we tell is when we draw a straw for it, it's filling back up quite quickly. So we want that to be a little bit less quick. But I reckon probably another half hour, maybe less, so it's time we put our let me get my words out, jars in the oven to sterilise. Okay, I think this is more or less there now. You see, if we draw a line in it, you can see it keeps that line just there. This is a sign it is ready. So what we're going to do now, pop this into sterilised jars. Well, that has made a few jars of this Branston pickle. Not the right colour at all, but it's going to take a month or two for the flavours to really sort of amalgamate and get to where we want. So they should be ready in time for Christmas, but of course we can't wait till then to see how it tastes. Got a small sample that I've saved back and we'll see what that tastes back in the studio. Indeed, so as you can see, it is completely the wrong colour for Branston pickle, but there could be any number of reasons. Branston pickle are pretty Well, it might be additives, it might be food colouring or something like that. I don't like to add those. But the question is, does it taste like Branston pickle? So let's give it a try. It definitely tastes like Branston pickle, or 99% of the way there. There's something missing. I'm not quite sure what it is, but it's definitely very, very close to Branston pickle. Don't forget, if you want to suggest a cook along for next week or a mission for next week, hashtag cook along, hashtag mission in the comments. Digwell says, like you said, whatever works for you. Indeed, indeed. And that's the key to gardening. It is whatever works for you. Bally Sinian says, late tonight. Hello, everyone. Welcome along. Lovely to see you. Hello to Anna. Jenny says, this reminds me, I need a new choppy gadget. I can't remember the name. Put the veg on and press the lid down. I couldn't chop all of that. I think I can smell that from here. It looks yummy. You're talking about something like a mandolin, or I know the ones that you're talking about. I just can't think what they're called either. Digwell says, nice. Malt vinegar would make it darker, as would a bit of tamarind paste. I did wonder about tamarind paste, actually. Perhaps that might be the key thing. That might be the key thing. Digwell says, a veg chopper. General term, each maker calls it something, but different have a play on those words. Veg chopper. A knife, then. A knife is a veg chopper at the end of the day. Oh, I haven't scored that. I am going to give that Branston Pickle Mixed a 9 out of 10. It's nice. Very nice. I think it would taste better in a couple of months' time once all those flavors have time to really sort of marinate, combine, and mellow. I think that will improve it as well. Just in time for Christmas, although my wife isn't happy with the amount of jars that we have, but we'll see how it goes. What have we got? Oh, no, I read that one. So Stuart's come up with a mission. Show us how to make leaf compost. Thank you. Keep an eye or listen to tomorrow's podcast for that, but that can certainly work. Chili Cake says, time will help too. The flavors to combine and mellow. Yeah, that's the key thing with chutneys, isn't it? Chutneys or anything like that. They take at least a month, I would say, for it to come together and really amalgamate. That's why I love chutney. I do really like chutneys. I haven't cooked a lot of chutneys for quite a while. I went through a stage years and years ago where I was constantly cooking chutneys and relishes and jams and stuff. I don't have as much time anymore, but I really enjoyed making this one again. Scott says, I prefer the colour. Looks good and looks like the fine cut over chunky. Yeah, I have to agree. I felt it was a fine cut over the chunky. The chunky, I just felt that was going to be too difficult to really get that to cook in chunky. So I tried to really cut it quite thin to do the best. Digwell says, oops, I left a tamarind off the ingredients list I sent you. There we go. There we go. Perhaps next time I make it, which probably won't be for another year, I will try and include tamarind. Jenny says, I'll have a look on Amazon. Thank you, Digwell. Last one fell apart. Gotta love a chutney pickle. Yeah, I do. I do. Especially with cheese, but I do love cheese. You're making me hungry. I've had my dinner. Lovely, lovely. Digwell says, I did a weird chutney last week. Fig chutney. Bloody lovely. Yeah. Yeah. Any chutney is lovely, in my opinion. Probably the mix of the vinegar and the sugar that just make it really nice, in my opinion. Probably not the healthiest thing for you, but I still think they're nice. We need to talk about chutneys one day, don't we? Perhaps that could be, I had something for next week. Perhaps we could talk about chutneys next week. Digwell says, fine cut Branston is better for sandwiches. I agree. They do one that is like a sauce as well. There's no chunks in it. It's just a very, very smooth sauce. Branston Pickle have made. I haven't seen it for a while, but it is very, very nice. Very nice indeed. What else have we got? What else have we got? By the way, don't forget to give us a like, a follow, subscribe. Don't forget to click the notifications so that you know when we go live. Jenny says, I had my first Branston pickle and cheese sandwich the other day. They've made it gluten-free at last. Really? I did not know that. But I don't go to a supermarket anymore. I hate supermarkets. A lot of sugar in chutney, but you only eat 30 to 40 grams at a time. Bloody diabetes. Yeah. Well, again, if I'm having a cheese, I mean, I like Christmas. I when I go out for a meal, I don't really like sweet puddings. I would much happier have a cheese board because I love my cheese. More of that, more cheese boards. Chili Kate says, we've been doing lots of preserving this year, just waiting to make pear chutney. Oh, that's an idea. I've just harvested loads of pears and loads of apples. Pear chutney. Hashtag cook along. Hashtag cook along. If anybody has any ideas. Diglet says, try cucumber and Branston sandwiches. I took them to school nearly every day. Branston and cucumber. Branston and cucumber. Oh, this has got everybody talking about Branston Pickle, isn't it? It's a proper British institution, Branston Pickle. Who here grows, or who here has made Branston Pickle before? Have you ever tried it? Chili says, do you need a recipe, Richard? Yes, please. Yes, please. I'd love to make that pear chutney if you could send that on to me. Or hashtag cook along if you want that as next week's recipe, cook along recipe. Jenny says, oh, well, dig well, I will, thank you. Oh, try not to talk about cucumber and Branston sandwiches. Cucumber and Branston sandwiches. I've heard of cucumber sandwiches, but never with Branston. Cucumber sandwiches. Takes me right back. Used to be popular during the war. So, coming back to polyculture, I feel the conversation on polyculture is coming to an end. But is anybody out there thinking about trying to grow polyculture next year or trying to do polyculture in their garden? Has tonight's discussion, if you're thinking about it as well, let's have a raise for hands if you're going to try polyculture out. And has tonight's discussion answered everything that you would want to know about it? Digwell says, I was the same as you, Richard, close but no cookie. Yeah, it is close, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure Branston as a company will have secret ingredients as their sort of method. And they're not going to tell you what those secret ingredients are, although the ingredients are always on their packet. I'm sure we could come up with it. I do think tamarind might be the thing that's missing, but it's very, very close. Jenny says, please try polyculture. It really is worth it. Digwell's raised his hand. Jenny's raised his hand. Anybody else going to try polyculture in the coming season? Even if it's just one bed, to give it a try. Not your entire allotment, your entire garden. Just one bed. Give it a try. And this is, like I said, I feel my kitchen garden here at home would benefit from looking a bit better at polyculture. I grow to eat. I've always said I grow my vegetables to eat. They're not for show. They're not to look good. They are for eating. But I'm coming to the stance that my garden here at home, my kitchen garden, needs to look the part at the same time, which is hard because I am a messy person. And perhaps polyculture would make it look good, but still not be as tidy as it should be. Does that make sense? Anna's raised her hand. Stuart has raised their hand. So a couple more people are going to try polyculture next year. I should put my hand up. I'll put my hand up and say me as well. Okay, so we will move on from that. Digwell says, I made a tomato drink called V8. So close. I called it V8 and 3/4. So this feels like it's a good opportunity now for this part of the show.
Bet you ran from this or that. He's gonna get it off his chest. Let him take the foreign vet. Richard Rants.
Indeed, it's time for my rant of the week, and I have written down 2 rants that I was going to rant about. The reason I've written down 2 is because I felt like I've ranted about these before. But the first one is the one that I'm pretty certain I've ranted out about before, and that is my neighbours' climbers. Now, I get on well with my neighbours, so I don't want to fall out with them or anything like that. But they have this particular climber. It grows, I don't know where it starts, but it grows over the fence over my summer house, completely covering the roof of it, over the fences, pretty much halfway down my garden. It affects the people behind me as well. It is huge. We try and cut it back as much as we can. We get a lot of compost material from it, but trying to keep on top of this vines is pretty difficult. We do our best. We do our best at just constantly trying to cut it down and get rid of it, but it comes back with a vengeance. So my rant is, how do we get rid of it? What do we do? Because at the end of the day, it's our neighbour's plant. I believe it's our neighbour's plant. It could be coming from anywhere. It grows so big. I don't know where it comes from. And as I said, I don't want to fall out with my neighbours. I'm sure that we have things that affect them. I think they've said before that some of my raspberries, as raspberries do, they put out runners. They've popped up in their garden. But how do you tackle that without upsetting them? Because I think one of the key things I've always said, we as neighbours, we all have to live with each other. That is human nature. We all have to get on. And I don't like being moany when there's things that I do wrong as well. But at the same time, I get annoyed. And Digraz just said, I know you do not like weed killer, but sometimes, just saying. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know if weed killer would work on this. It would need to be a pretty strong weed killer because of how much it grows. My garden is 25 meters long and it reaches at least halfway down that. And as I said, it completely covers the roof of my summer house, which is, what was that? 5 meters by 5 meters. It's pretty big. It just does a lot of goodness. What do you do? What would you do if you were in my predicament? How would you tackle this never-ending vine? It feels like Jack and the Beanstalk in some ways, except it doesn't grow up, it grows along. So how would you tackle this with your neighbours? How would you ask them to stop letting their plant get so rampant and affect my garden? The reason it's a problem, though, is that it grows over the fence, it grows over the summer house, and it looks a mess. It looks untidy. And as I said, because it's not just affecting me, I'm worried I'm going to get the blame for it because most of my neighbours know I'm quite a keen gardener. Jenny says, for polyculture, you need to water less. Big Girl's also given a thumbs up. Over on Instagram, A Marshall99 has joined, who I think I know who that is. Jenny says, send me a photo of it, Richard. Maybe you could ask to go around and see it from their side. Maybe they don't want it. Can you add beeswax on the main stems heading to your garden? I don't know where it starts from. That's the trouble. I don't know where it starts from. And it literally by the day seems to grow. Margaret, who of course has visited my garden several times, she says, I think the climber you were talking about is a Russian vine. They call it the mole minute plant. It needs killing if you want to get rid. The Russian vine. Let's have a quick look and see if it is. Oh, it could be Virginia creeper. It's hard to tell. I'm looking at, trying to find some pictures. Oh no, Russian vine. Yep, it's Russian vine. Let me share this screen with you and you'll see what I'm talking about. This is from BBC Gardener's World. This is the Russian vine. It is pretty invasive. So, yeah, you are right, Margaret. You are right. Russian vine is exceptionally fast and large growing plant that it is very aptly known as the mole a minute. Blah, 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 blah. Tweening woody stems, all clothed in a dark green heart-shaped leaves, which are judicious. So the network of branches and streams revealed in winter and has no great ornamental value. Extremely vigorous and invasive nuisance. Yep, it's definitely that. We don't want to know how to grow it, how to care, how to prune. Yeah. Any pests or diseases. Not susceptible to any diseases. Yeah, I think that is definitely it. That's annoying. That is very annoying. What have we got? What have we got? Digwell says, I was thinking the same. I was thinking the same. Something's changed here and I can't see it. Cut back the stems as far back as you can. They will wilt quickly. Lets you see the bits still growing, then move on to them, cut back, etc., etc. Yeah, seems the way. We've got to just keep cutting it back. Why is it? Just all of a sudden, something's changed. It just made it really difficult. That's it. It's awful. And thanks, Digwell. Yeah. Stuart says the mole a minute cannot be killed, so you would just have to keep cutting it from your side of the fence. And systemic herbicides can also be used by painting them on to the freshly cut stumps within 30 minutes of cutting to kill the roots. Trouble is, as much as it's a pain for me, it's my neighbour's plant, and I don't want to kill it off because it's not my plant. I wouldn't like it if somebody killed one of my plants. So why should my neighbours pull up with it? What? That's the wrong word. You get what I'm saying? I don't want it. I don't know. There we go. I just sorted it out. I don't want to kill something that's not my property. It should fall. It's my neighbour's property, and they might well like that plant. But it is a problem. It is a massive problem. I've got to try and get rid of it somehow, or what have you. Digger says it's your neighbour's plant, but they do not look after it or maintain it. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think they do. I think it's just they probably don't know where it's coming from, because I can't work out where it starts. And I don't know whose garden it starts in. At the same time, it's very difficult because my neighbour has this lovely jasmine plant, actually. It's jasmine down towards the front of the house, which also can come over, but she does tend to that quite regularly. In fact, she was cutting it down the other day and said, oh, some bits have fallen over, throw it into yours. I was like, nah, it's compost material at the end of the day. I'm going to collect that for compost material. But we tried that with this Russian vine. It's worse than ivy in the sense that it just grows so fast and so big that it's difficult to get rid of. The only good thing is it's plenty of compost material, a lot of material for the compost bin, but it's hard at the same time. Digler says, knock, wait, sort your bloody plant out or I will. Enough said, sometimes you have to be blunt. I come back to, and actually this is probably where I should be. They've mentioned about raspberries popping up in their lawn from our plant, from my raspberries. So I probably should put all my raspberries in pots to stop them from being so invasive, perhaps. Scott says your neighbours might appreciate your advice on how to deal with it. Yeah, might do, or might not. I don't know. We get on well with them. Probably do need to just go and have a word with them about it and see what we can do. It's hard. It is very hard because it is quite nice, but at the same time, it's a nuisance. Digwell says lots of compost at what cost to you? Stress, or would you not, or you would not mention it here? It's more annoying. It's more annoying than anything because it is so invasive and it looks untidy in my garden. And I say that because I'm not a tidy person. My garden is not the tidiest. I would like it to be, but there's always this. This is one of the things that I see quite regularly that just annoys me. And because it grows so fast and takes over so quickly, I'm stuck in this element of I'm constantly having to chop it back before I can do anything else. It's annoying. It's annoying. Yeah. Lots of compost at what cost? Yeah. It is annoying. But you get the point. You get the point that I'm trying to make. Right, let's have a look. I just realized I haven't uploaded it just yet. So I'm going to upload quickly your photos for the week. We haven't had many photos coming this week. So please do keep sending your photos in. We would love more. Digwa says there was a second rant. There was. The second rant is, and I went off this a bit. Why do gardeners make gardening sound so complicated? Why do we try and make gardening so complicated? I'm a firm believer in keeping it simple. I don't want to put people off from gardening. I want to encourage people to grow their own food. But then one of the things that seems to happen is the amount of different types of feeds and fertilizers that we need, the pruning routines and everything else. Why do we tend to make gardening so complicated? I'm a firm believer in keeping it simple. I've said this time and time again. I like to keep things simple. And that is what we're moving more and more towards. Why do we need so many different plant feeds when good compost is actually a bit more relevant? Why do we need regimented feeding routines when compost is such a good thing instead? Why do we have to find the perfect conditions for certain plants when actually they can thrive in some of the worst conditions according to what we know? Why do we make gardening so complicated? And don't get me started on the Latin, because that's something that always annoys me. And I understand the reason for the Latin, but when you read so many books and they include Latin name, when they're saying this is a gardening book for beginners and they throw in the Latin, why? Why do we make gardening so complicated? Digwell says, I have the same issue with a neighbour's ivy. I just cut it back. I try and cut it back, but as it says, a mile a minute, it's hard to cut back. Digwell says, we don't. Celebrity gardeners and garden centres do. All money to them. It's so true. It is so true. It is so true. But we need to make gardening, we need to simplify gardening. We need to demystify gardening in order to encourage more people to take up this hobby. We don't need so many fertilizers and feeds. We don't need so much water if we do it right. Idaho says fertilizer companies make things complicated. It's not just fertilizer companies, isn't it? Seed companies as well. You think you've got to sow your seed at the perfect depth in the perfect conditions for it to germinate. Well, in nature, it just lands in its place and it germinates. It's almost like they're trying to sell you more stuff. Jenny says, what do I do? Do what I do, Richard. Break all the rules. 9 times out of 10, it works great. Latin names, if I can say it or spell it, I don't use its name. Yeah. There's something about Latin names. I understand the scientific reasons behind it, but most of us are not scientific. At the end of the day, a P is a P. Digwell says it's all about feeding the soil, not the plant. Yep. If the soil needs calcium, then add calcium. Again, I'm totally in agreement with that. We don't need to add all these feeds and fertilizers on a weekly basis if they're not needed. We overfeed the soil in certain cases. We need to really invest in looking after the soil, giving the soil what it needs. Nil legitium carbontium. That sounds like Latin for something. Jenny says, a lot of my jungle patio full of edibles. Most shouldn't grow in the shade, yet they have all survived and thrived. There we go. This is exactly the point. This is exactly the point. And then Digwell, on that very subject, don't let the grind you down. Oh, is that what the Latin was? Nil legitium carbonidum. Latin's a dead language, really, isn't it? So we never know if we're pronouncing it right. We can only take educated guesses, but a lot of it, especially English speaking, we base it on how we pronounce words, which were probably very different in Roman times. Dead language, dead language. Anyway, let's have a look at your photos. Only got a handful in this week. So first of all, I can't actually see that, so let's bring that over here. Stuart's school has got some great looking chard. I believe this is his school anyway, but the chard looks really good and healthy, growing on strong, and absolutely delicious. Well worth picking a few of those leaves. These roots on Kate's watercress as well. As you know, we're growing watercress as our seed of the month. My seeds themselves haven't germinated, but I'll show you my watercress in a minute. That is behind me. Well, we've got Steve's church or local church asked for some donations for the harvest service, which I think is coming soon. So he shared all these squashes and there's some chard and other bits, all of which I'm sure will go down well. I wonder what the church is going to do with all these donations, though. What are they going to do with them? Some Beddoes humour, finally. Rainy days were invented so gardeners could finally get their laundry done. Indeed, indeed. We do need to spend a bit more time indoors sometimes rather than being outside. However, we dry our clothes outside, so gardens used for that at the same time. So on that note, please do keep sharing your photos. You can post them in our Facebook group. You can send to me via social media or email me, richard@adventuregroundpodcast.co.uk. richard@adventuregroundpodcast.co.uk. But again, in our Facebook group, via social media, direct message or email. All of these methods work great at getting your photos to me. Most photos actually come from the Facebook group, but I'm trying to open this up so we can get more photos from everybody else, because I know not everybody is on Facebook. Really want to hear more from anybody else on there as well, on all the other platforms. I know we were looking at the YouTube thing. I find it tricky. There was Steve, my IT guy, was coming up with a way of creating a hashtag, the software-based hashtag that we could do it with as well. So we'll see what happens. Jenny says that will make a good t-shirt. Digwell says that neolegitium carbondium. There we go. There we go. T-shirt. They are bringing the veg back, Richard. Oh, okay. So church brings the veg back to you, Digwell. That's that. At least it's not getting wasted. That's the key thing. It's not getting wasted. I don't like wasting food. I don't like wasting food. Jenny says, great photos, everyone. Digwell says, what size are you? That's a bit of an inappropriate question, isn't it? Joking, of course. Okay, so one of the newer features that we've added in the last few weeks is to get gardening happy, get people to tell us what has made you happy this week in the garden or on the allotment. What job has made you happy. And for me, what's made me actually quite happy is making plans. I've sat down this week on my allotment in my kitchen garden, just writing out a list of things that I need to do throughout the winter months, making my plans. But added to that, I've made it into a timeline. So, and using things like nat charts and stuff like that. So I've made it a little bit more interactive. And this has made me really happy, very happy indeed. I kind of feel like, for me, making plans is as exciting as doing the actual job. It makes me feel like we are just moving forward. And one of the biggest problems, ADD, I do struggle with lots going on in my head. So often I find myself sitting down, notepad and paper, writing lists, writing plans, and it just clears my brain and it gives me a timeline. It gives me the chance to see what we're going to be doing throughout the winter months. So that has made me really happy this week. It's cleared my head out of a lot, given me a timeline, and made me feel like there's less pressure to get things done because I've made a plan. I've made a plan that I can see where we're going. Digwell says, I want to make something with those yellow crookneck squashes. The seeds were sent to me from Canada, my favorite place, or one of my favorite countries in the world, Canada. Crookneck squashes. We do need to grow more different veg next year, don't we? Something a bit more interesting. Jamie Marsh, hey Rich, I think that's Jamie's little allotment, if I'm not mistaken. I thought I'd find you in here instead of Insta. Yep, I'm on both, and I've keeping an eye on Insta since you keep flagging that I miss you from time to time. So always when you come in, I seem to miss you on Insta. Chili Cat says, not a job, but seeing all the new shoots on my 18-month-old asparagus. It doesn't have to be a job. It's just something that has made you happy in the allotment or the vegetable garden this week. Not necessarily a job, just something that has made you happy. I want to do this more. Every week, I want to hear what has made you happy. Jenny says, hello, Jamie. Great to see you on here. Digwa says, I was happy to empty the rain gauge on the allotment and not see it full up the day after. Good enough, good enough. Digwell, we in the UK are very limited on our choice of squash seeds and plants. Yeah, it's generally courgettes, cucumbers, pumpkins, which aren't grown. Generally, pumpkins aren't grown for food, which is a bugbear of mine, but that's another story. Butternut squash and then maybe the spaghetti squash and things like that. I do think we are missing out on a lot of squashes that we could be growing. I think we need to really sort of start looking at them and seeing what we can grow that will add to our allotments. Like, oh, I forgot marrow as well. Add to our allotments, add to our kitchen gardens, make them more interesting, add some unique things to the allotment, to the garden. So please do share with us. Please do continue to share. I know we've got just over 10 minutes to go tonight. What has made you happy in the allotment? Also, I need a suggestion for a mission and a cook along for next week using the hashtag mission or hashtag cook along so that we can come up with something for next week. I needed a drink. So I am thinking next week we're going to talk about chutney recipes because that feels like it's the right time. Chutneys at this time of year, it feels like it's the right time to talk about chutneys. I was thinking about the smell of chutneys as well. So chutney recipes is going to be the subject for next week. Jamie says, I was happy to harvest 15 long, pointy, sweet red peppers today. I'll tell you what, it's been a good year for peppers and chilies because we've done really, really well. So, yeah, 15 of them. That's pretty good going, isn't it? Pretty good, especially sweet. I'm taking you talk about sweet red peppers. They're generally quite hard to get a decent crop out of in this country, but you've done it. You've done it and made it very, very happy. Ballycillian says even worse in Northern Ireland, Digwell. Yeah. I, are you still having trouble getting seeds since Brexit in Northern Ireland? Is my question to you, Ballycillian. I do have a member of the supporters club in Northern Ireland. I've not had any difficulties getting them into Northern Ireland. It's in Republic of Ireland that I have troubles sending them to. And Digwell says, I was also happy with my harvest of you cheeky curry squash, you cheeky curry, to save you pronouncing it, mate. You cheeky curry, you cheeky get, yeah, you cheeky curry. Yeah. Oh, that's another one we don't grow enough of, isn't it? Next year, we're going to have a big push on growing squashes. We want to grow lots of squashes next year. Autumn, chutney season. Absolutely. Absolutely. Chutney season. I was happy to see I have tomatoes finally getting ripe. Excellent. Excellent. Always good. Anna says, filling the fruit bowl with yet more apples. It's been incredible. Never had this many. It's been such a good year for fruit, hasn't it? So, yeah, absolutely. Digwell says to Jamie, slit them lengthways, stuff them, and bake. Bloody lovely. Absolutely. Jamie says they're from seed saved from a Tesco pepper last year. Excellent. Excellent. This is something we've been experimenting with on the podcast this year. What can we grow from stuff that we buy from a supermarket? So Tesco's pepper. You would have thought it impossible. It is. Idaho says, I don't enjoy weeding, but once it's done, it makes me happy. Yeah, this is it. It makes us very happy to do anything, doesn't it? Ballycillian, yes, no mainland seed company will deliver. That's a shame. That's a shame. It's weird. I have not had any, as far as I'm aware, not had any trouble getting them into Northern Ireland, but Republic of Ireland, I have had trouble. But I don't sell seeds, I sell membership. That might be the way round. Jenny says, I love squashes. Jenny says, squashes have always worked great in polyculture for me, along the ground from a container or up over a frame arch, which tallies up with what we've been talking about. Yeah, I think next year we all need to grow more in the farm, more squashes as a group. Try and push to grow more squashes. Raise your hands up. Let's see a raise of hands if you are going to grow more squashes next year, along with polyculture. We've covered a lot tonight. I still want a cook along. Hashtag cook along. Hashtag mission as well. And Stuart has suggested a mission, which I've forgotten at the moment, but would be good for a little reminder. Digwell's suggesting to Idaho, pick the tomatoes as soon as they start turning peak, past the breaker point. The plant plays no part in ripening from then on. There we go. Jamie says, my squash arch hasn't been as good as normal, but still got loads of it. Excellent, excellent. And Jenny's raised her hand several times. I, for one, I've always tried to grow lots of squashes anyway, but I think next year I'm going to have a big push and grow more pumpkins, edible pumpkins, not carving pumpkins, more butternut squashes, more what's the bird treehouse squash? Give that a try. Just really go all out in growing lots and lots of squashes. That's my goal for next year. My mission for next year: grow lots more squashes. I think it's a good mission, good challenge for next year. Digwell says all pumpkins are edible. That is true. All pumpkins are edible, but some taste better than the others. And the pumpkins that are generally sold in the supermarket for carving, in my opinion, taste like rubbish. They're not grown for flavour. That's the thing for me. That's why I like things like the Crown Prince pumpkin, because they are delicious. I'm not for carving pumpkins that are specifically chosen to grow for carving. Add them to the polyculture garden, Richard. They will be. rest assured that they will be added to the polyculture garden. Chili Cake says, definitely growing more squashes and pumpkins next year. Me and my allotment neighbour agreed this about a month ago. Absolutely. I'm with you for that. Jenny says, Crown Prince are best for me. And Scott, Crown Prince is definitely the best, says Jamie as well. Stuart says, yes, more squash next year. And Jenny says, blue and pink banana are close seconds. Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you. Digwell, of course, same as all veg. Some taste better. Tesco value tomatoes. Yuck. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean when I talk about edible pumpkins. I don't want to grow the ones that are bred for carving. They're still edible, yes, but they don't taste as good. The squashes, the pumpkins that are designed for edibility, absolutely delicious. I really fancy a pumpkin curry now. You've got me discussing. I'm trying to lose weight still, so I cannot eat it. Anyway, we do need to do the draw for next week, but I cannot do it because we've had no suggestions for the cook along, and we've only had the one mission, which was Stuart's. So, unless anybody can come up with some ideas, then let me know. Well, we've got Chili Kate says, writing down these recommendations. Yeah, please forward them on to me as well because I like the idea. Jamie says tromboncino. So tromboncino, that is a type of squash as well, isn't it? More like a courgette or something. Loofah is something I tried growing before as well. I didn't have much success with it, but you never know. Next year might be different. They are delicious. Cook along squash curry. There we go. We've got a cook along in a squash curry. Digwa says, I defy you to tell me if a pumpkin is a carver or an eater once it is in a pumpkin cheesecake. Pumpkin pie. I haven't had that for a while. Amanda was meant to make some pumpkin pie, but pumpkin cheesecake sounds interesting as well. Nonetheless. So we have got cook anything with a pumpkin. My idea was how to make leaf compost. Oh, pumpkin cheesecake. So I think it's going to be a pumpkin curry as the cook along for next week. Digwell says tromboncino. Excuse me. Tromboncino, pick green, and it's a summer squash. Pick brown, and it stores as a winter squash. Yeah, they're quite long, aren't they? They're quite big and long. Jamie says tromboncino, eating young is like a courgette, but if you let it cure, it's like butternut. There you go. I haven't grown them for quite a while. I'm going to have to do this next. Oh, Jenny's just got in with hashtag pumpkin cheese. Hang on. They're both your suggestions, Jenny. So you've got to, if you're going to win, no matter what, you've just got to come up with an idea. Pumpkin cheesecake on my channel, just saying. So I could do that. I could just play Digwell's pumpkin cheesecake video and not make a video, just cook it myself. So over to you. We got the mission. We got to make the leaf mold. Show you how to do that. Oh, my nose is itchy. But what do you want for the cook along? Pumpkin cheesecake or pumpkin curry? I think the cheesecake is probably closer or different, isn't it? We've probably done pumpkin curries before. Pumpkin cheesecake, I think pumpkin cheesecake seems to be the winner. So that's what we're going to be cooking next week. Jenny says, told you I'm a rule breaker. There's no rules about it. It's just it's hard to do a draw when you're the only person that has voted. In fact, there's only one entry. So, and that was all you. So it's going to be the pumpkin cheesecake. That seems to get the most votes and what have you. But it is now 7:30. That means it is time for me to wrap up, get out of here for the night, and we will be back again next Sunday at 6, where we're going to be talking about chutneys, delicious chutneys. We're also going to be making a pumpkin cheesecake and creating leaf mold as well. Don't forget to send your photos, your videos in as well, and we want to have a bit of a discussion about what has made you happy over this last week. So that's next Sunday, 6 p.m. as always. Until then, I think it's time to wrap up and get out of here. Thanks so much, guys. All the best. See you next Sunday at 6. Bye for now.